A study was conducted in Columbia University where they gave 400 fifth graders a bunch of challenging puzzles, and regardless of how well they did, they told these fifth graders that they did really well, that they scored high. But here's the catch. Half of them were told they did well because they were smart or gifted, and the other half were told they did well because they were hardworking. They then gave these kids 3 more puzzles, and what happened was that the kids that were told that they were naturally clever ended up spending less time on the puzzles, they focused on the easier ones, and they lacked motivation overall. While the ones who were told they did well because they worked really hard ended up spending more time on the difficult puzzles, had more fun, and were more motivated throughout. I immediately related to this study because I've always been told that I was a very smart kid, but after hearing it for so long from everyone you know, it gets to your head. And when that happens, you get ahead of yourself and you stop putting in the effort, the hard work, the commitment that needs to be put in. There's actually 2 great equations that the author of the book Grit comes up with. Talent times effort equals skill, and skill times effort equals achievement. And if you substitute the equations, you get talent times effort squared equals achievement, which tells us that effort is not just double, but it is exponentially more important with anything anyone wants to achieve. I was interested, so I flipped through the rest of the book to figure out whether we can actually learn to work harder and develop this hardworking trait we have, because no one really ever teaches us how to work hard. And from what I read, what the author establishes from the get-go after all her interviews and studies and experiments with these paragons of hard work and grit were 2 things. One is that they are extremely resilient and hardworking, and 2, they have a deeply held belief about what they want. Or in other words, they have passion and perseverance. These combined create grit. But from what we can see, grit and hard work aren't just fixed qualities in ourselves. They can be grown and developed just like any other part of our psychological character. And what we end up with is a really good breakdown of 4 psychological assets that all these top level players of grit have in common. The stuff that you can develop and work on to become a harder worker. The first one is interest. To become passionate, you need to become interested. I think that part is obvious. Like, obviously you need to become interested in the thing that you want to work hard on. But how do you practically do this? I think this quote from the book sums it up perfectly. Passion for your work is a little bit of discovery followed by a lot of development and then a lifetime of deepening. Interest doesn't just come from sitting in your bedroom and you having an epiphany one day. You don't just read the cells chapter in your bio book and go like, yeah, I want to be a scientist. Most of the people interviewed say they spent years exploring and dipping their toe in the water with several different things and several different projects. And if we think about it in a practical sense, real interest doesn't just come from introspection. It's triggered by real life interactions. It's messy, serendipitous, inefficient, and that's what makes it so real. It also doesn't just happen after that initial exploration. Like, interest takes time to develop, so you need to be re-triggered by that same thing again and again for you to actually become more curious and look into it more. The next asset that's important with that development part is deliberate practice. Duckworth observed that the idea of continuous development was instilled in every single successful person that she interviewed. The Japanese term for it is kaizen, and despite being incredible at whatever these mega successful people were doing, they still wanted to improve, get better, and excel even more. It's not a negative mindset. It's not looking back with dissatisfaction. It's looking forward, always wanting to grow. Being hardworking and developing that hardworking trait within us isn't just about the hours we put in, despite what most people think. It's also about how deliberate we are with those hours. This was new to me. The best way to intentionally work hard is through deliberate practice, and experts define this as having a clearly defined stretch goal, being very focused on that stretch goal, seeking feedback continuously, and finally repeating and improving along the way. A stretch goal is defined as you zeroing on that Achilles heel in your work, your specific biggest weaknesses. Experts intentionally seek out challenges that they can't meet. They shun out the praise of others, and surprisingly, they work hardest when they're alone, when no one's watching. It's very rare that I'm ever deliberate with my work, but if I want to practice how to work hard, this really makes sense. Purpose was the third trait to becoming a more hardworking individual, and the book does talk about how the best way to do this is to figure out how the work that you're doing is positively contributing to society and your community. And as much as that is true, that would obviously make you a more hardworking person. But for me specifically, for actually most people in their late teens and early 20s, it's very hard to do, especially when we're just students, when we're just trying to figure stuff out. So according to the Octalysis framework, the second best core driver and motivator for us is development and accomplishment. Understanding that true emotional reason for why you're doing what you're doing, what you want to accomplish, why you want to get good grades, why you want to make money. Is it because you've not had the most stable life? Is it because you want to guarantee success for yourself? Finding that clarity, that good thought process immediately changes your view of why you're doing what you're doing. For example, in maths class, when you have this guy sitting next to you just doing the work so that he can go home and get done with school, you in the back of your mind have your specific reasons, and as a result you'll end up working much harder in the long run. Whatever the case is, I think using progress as a motivator to develop your perseverance and passion are very good in developing that grit. We don't realize this, but hope is a really big contributing factor to how hard you work and study on a daily basis. And no, I don't mean the hope where you hope it doesn't rain tomorrow. Grit depends on a different kind of hope. It's the hope that underpins all three aspects that I previously discussed. It's the hope where we believe our efforts will improve our future, where regardless of adversity, gritty people will take accountability. They will know that they'll be able to get up and improve their situation. They don't play any blame games. They always try and make it slightly better. The thing is, having that fixed mindset about things like your intelligence and your ability will always lead you to making pessimistic justifications for why you were dealt a bad hand or why you had bad luck. And this will always end up with you giving up or avoiding challenges altogether. Whereas building that growth mindset leads to you having a more optimistic view of that adversity that you face, and always leads to you at least trying to persevere through it. Creating this hope and trying to build this growth mindset within yourself takes a long time. But Duckworth's recommendation to attain this hope, to become a hard worker, is to actually work on boosting each part of this sequence. First, update your beliefs about intelligence and talent. Both are changeable, there's tons of evidence on it. Second, practice thinking in an optimistic, problem-solving kind of sense rather than a more pessimistic, the world hates me kind of way. And third, put your pride aside, be a beginner, and be willing to learn from anyone. I'm slowly learning that my ability to work hard is an important thing that I have to cultivate, but at the same time, working smart is also important. At the end of it, it's a balance. So to learn to work smart, check this video out where I go through the 7 most effective study techniques that I use in medical school. Thank you for watching. I hope this helped. I'll see you in the next one.